Hey everybody, Tim Albright. Thanks so much for joining us for this webinar. Really talking about how to really kind of get the right integrator, the right partner, both from a dealer standpoint, but also honestly from a manufacturing standpoint. With us, we'll introduce our folks here in a second, but I want to talk about the outline and the kind of the interface that you're in right now. On the right-hand side, there's a question and answer section. We will take those questions as they come in. So go ahead and use that. Anytime you have a question, as we're talking about stuff, we'll pause a couple of times and address some of those. The panel will. I don't know anything. So, but we'll take those as they come. There's also a networking section. So this is a little bit like a trade show. You can connect with other people, trade information, and have conversations. And then there's also a way to connect with everybody here at the very bottom. You can click on our lovely names and connect with us on LinkedIn. So let's talk about who's here. First and foremost, John Hewlin. John is the Director of Channel Marketing for Education at Crestron. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jeffrey Frank. Jeffrey is is a design engineer with CTI. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thank you very much.
And Ryan Cochran. Ryan is from Wichita State University. How are you, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So kind of first and foremost, John, I'm going to start with you. You're the head of education marketing for Crestron. What does that mean as far as connecting directly with the education market?
Well, it's been quite a ride at Crestron. I've been here for about 14 years, and my first 7 or 8 or so was really working directly with the colleges, universities, the educational institutions around the Midwestern U.S. And in that role, I really just kind of developed this passion to better understand how technology and automation is being used and helps improve 21st century learning outcomes and what 21st century students do. So now I work with the team that goes and visits all the colleges and universities and help them understanding the use cases and applications. And that's kind of what I do for the team.
All right. Jeffrey, you've got a CTSI, you have a CTSD, as my buddy Mark Coxon would say. You are CTS a lot.
Yes.
Probably shouldn't say what Coxon says. But tell folks what you do at CTI and what design engineer means.
So from a design engineering standpoint, I help put together a system, right? And making sure that it meets the customer needs, meets the requirements of the space, and also fits in their budget as well. I'm also in a player coach role as a director here in Wichita, so I get to be involved from the beginning to the end of the project as a design engineer, but also just like the special teams coach who can come in and help when there's stuck.
All right. And Ryan, sitting inside Wichita State University, what is your roles and responsibilities?
So my current title is I'm the Director of AV Engineering. I used to have a more all-encompassing title of Director of Media Services, and it just got to be, for a campus our size, was just too much. I was doing all the tech support, live events, installations, engineering, everything.
Wow.
And it was too much. So we split my job in half, which was great. Luckily not my pay, but I split the job in half. And so now I'm responsible for basically all the AV engineering, design, installation, everything for the entire campus. And
nice.
So it's interesting being in higher ed just because I like to say that we're the sole AV integrator for a town of 20,000 people. And so it's interesting. The relationship between us and integrators is a very interesting one indeed.
We'll get into that in a second. The folks at CTI did a job that involved Crestron at WSU, and then they made a video out of it. So we're going to take a look at this and talk about some of the challenges that Ryan and his team faced and how they overcame them. So go ahead and play that video.
Each year at Wichita State, we are hosting thousands of prospective students and families to the Marcus Welcome Center. Its primary purpose is really to serve as the front door of Wichita State. The building's been around for about 20 years now, and we've really enjoyed it, but it was starting to feel dated, and we knew that we needed to modernize our ability to share Wichita State's story with prospective students and their families. So through that process, several years ago, we started down a path with our university president, and we talked about what should the next generation of future Shockers enjoy during their campus visit experience.
The highlight of this project was a 32:9 video wall that really was aimed to highlight the innovation that is going on here at Wichita State University, really to capture the guests who come in the building, really give them that wow factor. And we also feature touch screens throughout the building for students to walk up and get more information about their chosen program, some of the activities here on campus, and some of the other opportunities that they have to share their skills and their interests here at Wichita State.
Part of our facelift to the building was to make sure that when visitors came to us, they actually felt like they were landing at Wichita State. You get to see our mascot, Woo Shock, right on the floor. But then you also get to see so much more visual storytelling with all of the digital screens that we have. As you walk through the Shocker Experience walkway, you'll actually see some of our famous alumni. They can interact with our digital screens that we have, and they can hear those stories from our students. They can hear about our students' internship experiences and how they've enjoyed that and how that's really helped propel them further in their career. So we were able to integrate all kinds of applied learning stories, which really is our niche at Wichita State. It really brings together the wow factor for our students and families to see how modern our experience at Wichita State is.
In selecting an AV provider for this project, I was looking for somebody not to just tell me what to do, because I already had a vision in my head. As the AV engineer, I had the whole system already designed. What I needed was the expertise in the video wall selection, the video wall installation, the parts that are not common around here on campus, something that my staff can't do alone. So I needed somebody who could take my vision and get it on paper and get it ordered and installed, and I knew would do a fantastic job.
I think for us, we're not experts in technology. So really we lean on our campus partners because they're the ones who are experts in technology, and we know they're gonna go out and find the best vendors and capabilities out there. And I know CTI has done a lot of installations and projects here on our campus.
Working with CTI on this project was a very smooth process. We were in constant communication between me and my local representative, and everything from the design of the system to quoting the system, to ordering the system, receiving all the equipment and getting it installed. Their project manager was here on site multiple times throughout the week just to make sure that the systems were ready to be installed, that they had everything they needed in terms of power and network and all the things that are required for a complex AV system.
Now we have tremendous capability to show presentations, videos that really bring home the Wichita State experience. For us to be able to have a full LED screen when we used to previously have what felt like an antiquated projector is really a powerful storytelling experience for us.
All right, Ryan, very impressive campus, very impressive installation. So let's talk about what were you trying to solve here, right? What was the overarching, oh my gosh, we have to change this, or oh my gosh, our faculty wants this, or our administration wants this. What exactly were we trying to do here?
So yeah, this project takes place at our Marcus Welcome Center, which is the first place that our prospective students show up. So when they come for a campus tour, they come here, they come to this building for just kind of an orientation of what the university is about, what its offerings, and just kind of this is where their tour starts. And the main need really was just updating the whole building. It was I'm sure it was very nice in the 1990s, but it had gotten dated. And so the architects, they really wanted to liven up the space, make it really better reflect what Wichita State is about today versus what it was like 30 years ago. And so this space in particular used to be actually a theater. And so
Okay.
they leveled the floor and they completely revamped it. But there was also a bigger need. It was just not just for these tour videos, but also the staff. There's a pretty large staff in our admissions department, and they want to be able to use it for their meetings, their team meetings, and anything that they have going on as well. And so I had to serve two needs, and that was kind of the biggest thing. And so just the combination of had to be practical, had to be showy, but had to look good. All of those things combined. That was what was driving it.
All right. So Jeffrey, from a design standpoint, you obviously heard that. Then how do you take that and go, okay, here's them parts and pieces? Because my understanding of engineering is you get to the parts and pieces eventually, right? But you have to understand the client's needs. How do those needs translate into the overall design, and then you get to the parts and pieces?
So I'm pretty fortunate when I get to work with Ryan because he is the designer, right? He has an idea in his head, he has a concept, and he can give that to me. He usually communicates very early and often when he has vision on those projects. So when he has something in his foresight, we collaborate on it. So he'll give me an idea of what he wants to do, and we collaborated back and forth on what it would look like for the video wall and what would fill their needs, and give them a ROM. And then as time progressed, we would fine tune that as more details were provided. So ultimately, like for me, it was pretty easy. Like I translated what he wanted into, and we kind of landed in the middle on what that space was going to look like. Now, there were some things we couldn't plan for, like I think halfway through the project, I see that nice yellow ceiling feature. Guess you can't put ceiling speakers in there for distributed audio, so we had to switch to a wall-mounted speaker, which was not a problem. It's not difficult to do. So, and then because we were engaged early, and because Ryan had foresight on the project as well, we gave them the specifications for the video wall, and the architect and the GC built it around us, built the room around the feature. So for me, I mean, it was easy for us.
Yeah. John, I actually want to bring you on this, and not necessarily, yes, from a restaurant standpoint, but from your experience in education, how important is that collaboration piece, right, between the folks who are going to be using this every day, the IT manager, the AV user, and the integrator and the manufacturer? How important is that early collaboration?
I think the importance cannot be overstated. I had this thought I learned early on at Crestron, which is kind of this triangle defense concept, where it's manufacturer, integrator, and educational partner and institution. And it's just this idea that that Ryan has the most important relationships, understanding what the stakeholders on his campus want and need. And that's part I also can't overstate. I feel like, building bridges on campus between the AV team, and if it's the IT team, because they're two separate groups, or the school's architect's office, and everything that's going to happen, we need a seat at that table at the beginning. And when I say we, I mean Ryan's group, the AV group on campus. So that synergy and that kind of triangle, a relationship, it just is. It's key. It's key for a successful integration.
Well, Ryan, jumping off what John said there, how do you, or how did you in this case, get from your customers, right? Because you have a set of customers just like John and Jeffrey do. How did you get from your customers, your internal folks, what it was that they were trying to accomplish? Like I'm certain it wasn't just one meeting and you had everything you needed, right?
Yeah, not by a long shot. No, I mean, and a lot of it just kind of goes back and forth of, well, have you thought about this, or what about this? And just like an integrator does with their customers, like you said, the folks that I work with on campus, they're my customers. And it's because this room did evolve quite a bit, because originally what we had in there before was a projection system. And so they just assumed we were going to put another projection system in there. And then when I said, well, every place has a projector, let's spice it up a little bit. Let's move to a video wall. So they went from projector to video wall, but it's just standard 16:9 video wall at that point. Then they got talking about, well, we do want to have these meetings where we do Zoom meetings. I'm like, well, if you're doing a Zoom meeting, you want to have one screen with your people and one screen with your content. And so we might want to go with two screens, or in this case, a 32:9 video wall. And it just has the added benefit of when you walk in that room, when you walk in this room, I mean, it just smacks you in the face. And so between that and just listening to, again, what they want their prospective students to see, that was kind of the important part, is what kind of feeling do those prospective students need to have when they walk in this building? And that's kind of what was our driving factor with this specific project.
Really, because and I'm hearing a couple different people, like titles here. How many different areas of the college were involved in giving this vision? Was it, just admissions, or are we talking about, president or chancellor or provost? Or like how many different departments are we talking here?
So primarily, admissions is the number one for sure, but also largely driven by the president's office.
Okay.
Because again, this is a high-profile building, as well as our architects. We have architects on staff at the university, and they manage all of the construction projects and everything that happens on campus. And so they set kind of the standards for the university, and they guide all of these projects, even if they outsource the actual architecture design to some other architect firm. They're the ones interfacing with those architects and coordinating all of that. So by and large, it was those three departments combined that set the overall vision for this space.
Okay, I just want to give people the entire sense of how many folks we're talking about here, and getting everybody's kind of buy-in, but also their idea. Jeffrey, when you look at obviously Ryan and what he's relating to you, but also his internal folks, how do you take those wants, needs, and desires, those visions, and how do you start? As I asked before, the piecing together. How do you evaluate a manufacturer and say that this is going to fit this 98% of the way, 75% of the way there? How do you start populating it, what in essence is, a bill of materials?
Sure. I mean, for this case, it was super easy. Crestron has been a long time standard for Wichita State, from a control standpoint, from video transport to wireless presentation devices. So building upon that, if it was any customer, whether it's large, small enterprise, 5 rooms, 100 rooms, 400 rooms, it has to be predictable in my mind. Like, it has to be designed in a way that I know it's going to perform when I leave, or my service, my installations, my commissioning teams, and they're training the customer and they leave. And I also design with service after the fact in mind. Like, so who's going to support my product and my customer after I leave, from an RMA standpoint, from the warranties, and Crestron's fantastic at that, because I'm pretty sure almost every SKU has a 5-year advanced placement warranty on it. So that's a great way to make that dollar stretch as far as you can for the customer, because things happen. There's lightning strikes, and can't say that a water sprinkler is going to go off and they're going to replace it. But things happen, power supplies die, whatever the case is going to be. So for me, predictability, service after the sale. Customer wants it needs to work, and it needs to work the next day. If something happens, I need a replacement, not 6 weeks from now. And then creating, especially in like Ryan's case, or Wichita State, or an enterprise customer, or even just the user experience has to be the same. The hardware needs to be standardized in a way that, like, if something were to happen, I've got the same piece on a shelf somewhere. I can pop it in, and downtime is minimal. And then scalability too. So, I don't want somebody buying something twice. I don't want to, hey, you only needed a 24 port switch, but next week you're going to need a 48. So, let's future proof it in a way that, the system is scalable and you can build upon it, versus just a fixed matrix in and out, and now you've got to replace it every time. So standardizing on your system type, not just for user experience and support, but also for your budgets. Like, you can know that room type A, B, and C are going to cost about X, Y, and Z for your cost, and that's predictable, and you can plan with that.
John, a little bit about what Jeffrey was saying there about the predictability and the service after the sale. When you're talking with folks, whether it's folks like Jeffrey, or you're visiting campus, what is it that you can talk about when it comes to Crestron? And Jeffrey mentioned the 5-year warranty on most of your products, but also those RMAs, those the either the replacement or the fixing of the product quickly. But how do you convey that serviceability of a Crestron system?
I feel one of the ways to convey it is to talk about the support that's available, both from the integrator and that second part of the triangle I mentioned before, and ways they can support things. But the partner programs we have include, direct support and training and things like that. I do feel strongly that, Jeffrey mentioned future proof, and I like that term and I used it a lot. But recently I was talking to a leader at another educational institution, and he told me that he strives for future flexible. And I was like, you know what? Can I steal that term, future
100%.
flexible?
I'm gonna write
Because
that down.
because it's this, yeah, so it's this concept that there's always going to be evolving needs and expectations which are going to be really difficult to anticipate, but the best framework is a way to try to be flexible. So on one hand, it is back end support, like repairing something quickly or an advanced replacement, but we try to do a lot at Crestron about developing solutions that can add features and functions, maybe even while the product's deployed. So one quick example is like our our digital media NVX, our AV over IP platform. We came out with it, but then we added a firmware update to let it enable additional resolutions and refresh rates.
Yeah.
So like esports applications came in, and a lot of people weren't thinking about that beforehand. Another one is we just did a recent firmware update with our Video Bar 70, which is video conferencing setup, but you may have it set up as a Zoom room, but with the firmware update, you can now allow for BYOD devices to be supported where they might have a different meeting conference platform. Even though Zoom's the campus for standard, and everybody at the beginning of the project agreed on Zoom, then 2 weeks into it, the professor goes, well, wait, what happened to my, insert name here? And so I feel strongly that between that, another example of our Flex systems that have updates or software updates to be triggered to allow the cameras to use visual AI and be triggered by conversations or back and forth between the professor and the students, and take those audio cues through visual AI and do camera positioning. It's that flexibility that I think comes with adding and developing the product, even as it's already been deployed for projects in scenarios that were unforeseen at the beginning.
And that actually brings it around a little bit to, again, 100 years ago, when I was a tech manager, we had a saying: you don't update firmware on Fridays, right? You just don't do that. But you do have to do it, right? Ryan, when it comes to updating firmware, and like John said, a lot of times it's sometimes it's security, but a lot of times it's also increasing the functionality of your installed systems. When do you make that decision, right? If it's not security, and I, my 2 cents is, if it's a security update, you better do it yesterday, right? But if it's a functional one, when do you make that choice?
That's a great question, and I don't know if I have a great answer for that. It all depends on the feature.
Okay.
If it's something that we have a deep need for and just couldn't get to it because either no manufacturer had it at the time, or it was going to be too expensive to implement at the time, or whatever. If it's something like that, then we will do it as soon as possible. If it's one of those that's kind of a nice to have, it's like, well, yeah, it'd be nice, then we'll wait until it's, we've got weeks available in that classroom or whatever. But if it's something that's more, bug fixes, things that really annoy us on a daily basis, we will fix those as soon as we possibly can. even if it's not security related, just little things that are annoying, we will fix those as soon as we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
It reminds me of the it
Yeah.
reminds me of the when Java script went away or whatever. We had to, or Flash, excuse me, it was Flash. When Flash went away, we had to go update all the DMDSs. Man, that was a necessary, you had to do it kind of a thing, you know. But it was a daunting task. It took some time.
Yeah, there are lots of stories about updating firmware that I just don't anyhow. Ryan, talk for a second about that future flexible, because John, I am 100% going to steal that. And if you want to give me the person that we're stealing it from, that's fine, but I am stealing it. How do you feel about that concept of maintaining future flexibility? Not just in the space that you're in now, because obviously that's it's a marquee space, but also in your classrooms.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's critical. In higher ed, we don't get a ton of money. There's just not a lot of money flowing in. And what does come in usually goes to other things. And so when we get money for classrooms, we try to spend it as wisely as possible. We get as much done with the money that we have, and then we want to keep it running for as long as we humanly possibly can. Because we just can't afford to replace stuff just because the warranty is out. And so we focus on not only what's going to meet our needs today, but what's going to continue working 5, 7, even 10 years from today, that's still going to be useful. Of course, Wichita State was actually one of the very early adopters to have HDMI in every classroom. I didn't realize that until I went and visited at the CCNC, or excuse me, it's not the ETC conference.
Yep.
And the HETMA folks talking to, what are you doing in your schools? Just kind of chatting in the lunchroom, And I said, oh yeah, we've got HDMI in 100% of our rooms. And they said, well, we're only at 20% or 30%. And I didn't realize Wichita State was that far ahead, but boy, it's come in handy, because the adoption of HDMI went so quickly, and now USB-C is almost faster than HDMI was adopted. So we're starting to get USB-C in all of our classrooms, and it's slow but surely. So hopefully, knock on wood, USB-C will be around for a while. But
yeah, knock on wood. Hopefully it will. Really quickly before we move on, Ryan, because I am curious about this. Anytime I talk to especially with the higher ed folks, what is your typical refresh cycle, whether that's in a space like you're in or your typical classroom?
So budgetarily, I aim for 6 years.
Okay.
Because that gives us the life of the warranty period, the 5 years, and then some wiggle room, with just hoping that it's going to stay up and running.
Yeah.
Typically with the Crestron product specifically, we don't have to worry about it. Most of the time it lasts us close to 10 years. When I started in this role, we had some old 2 series stuff that had been there for 15 years, and it was still working every single day. So I didn't have a problem with that. Displays are another issue. Obviously they don't last as long, but so like I said, we aim budgetarily for 6 years. It never happens that rapidly, because again, just because I ask for that kind of budget doesn't mean I get that kind of budget. But we do absolutely what we can to keep things moving. Because again, that budget for 6 years is everything.
Yeah.
And you never have to replace everything every 6 years. So I do what I can to maintain as many classrooms as I possibly can every year. So it's, like I said, it's roughly 6 years is what I aim for.
Oh, I was going to jump in with a follow-up. So how many spaces total is that, Ryan?
Oh gosh. So it depends on how you measure it, but we are over 500 spaces that have AV equipment installed.
Wow.
But that's classrooms, conference rooms, offices, things like that. So classrooms specifically, I think we're sitting around 300.
Right.
And
so
the rest
I just always like to ask that question, because then it gives that extra part of the equation, which means at a minimum, if Ryan can't do 50 rooms per year, he's falling behind his refresh rate. And like he said already, that's why it tends to go a little longer sometimes, is because something changes, a new project comes up, and then they don't necessarily change the budget. They're like, oh, can you fit this in? You're like, well, that's going to put me behind. So how do you balance some of that part?
Yeah, that's a challenge. I mean, we had a grand idea for the latest refresh of, so in our classrooms we divided up into what we call general use classrooms. So any department, anybody can schedule those rooms,
Yeah.
versus departmentally specific classrooms or labs. It's usually mostly labs, like chemistry labs. Obviously, you're not going to put an English class in a chemistry lab, so our budget aims for just those general use classrooms, and we leave it up to the departments to fund their own rooms as well.
Okay.
I lost my train of thought there. Sorry.
No, but just how many rooms you have to do all at once.
Yeah. So yeah, we had a grand plan for our latest update of our general use classrooms, but we had to scale it back just because the budget just didn't work out and the timing didn't work out, and so we had to kind of scale it back. Okay, we'll do this part of it this time, and then 5-6 years from now we'll do the other part of it that we didn't get to do this time. So you just have to make sacrifices like that. When you're talking about 600, 500 rooms on campus, you have to make concessions like that every single day.
Yeah. John, when it comes to supporting both the dealer side and the end user side, what exactly, from your perspective, can Crestron do, or does Crestron do to support everything down the line from the integrator and down to folks like Ryan?
Well, I'd say first and foremost is we have this group, True Blue Support, and we have our online help. So the idea is that someone can pick up the phone and call in any of our partners. That's our integrator partner, like CTI. Anyone can call in, and then our educational partners as well. And then we have online help. So that can be an online chat or an email with a quick question, or hey, how do I do that? We have new areas. One kind of new area of our website that I'm trying to work with all three of our verticals, government, enterprise, and education, is this design ideas area. And it is just as a thought starter. It's kind of a little bit of this idea of serving suggested, and a conference room with Microsoft Teams, or a high impact space, or an auditorium. And it kind of gives this basis of, maybe I like to think of it as a way for a person like Ryan, a head of an AV group at a university, to maybe show to someone, are you guys thinking about something like this, with these some capabilities and so on? So it can be used by a technical user to show a non-technical user an idea, an image of a space, and a bubble diagram is what we call it. So we got that. We got Crestron Technical Institute. So we offer training, and we get deep into training with our integrator partners. CTI has whole teams of people that are certified programmers, as Jeff mentioned, but then also, different levels. You don't necessarily have to go up to be a certified programmer to be able to get through a classroom design. And then there's even configurable programming. It's more like our AV framework is kind of this configurable setup to either test rooms real quick before you deploy them with your own code, or make that kind of repeatable UI that the professor who's an adjunct who only comes in one night a week won't be thrown off by too much if she gets moved into a room in a different building. So we do that, and then we have the masters. Hey, I got a little masters thing on my screen. Crestron Masters, there's 3,000 or so people in the industry that attend our event for programming, and now we've opened it up to you don't have to be focused on programming. You can be a master's architect, so like more of a system designer. So the schools are allowed to come, and our enterprise partners are too. So that, and the last thing I want to say is connecting with our partners. We have a team of, just for education, 12 people around the US and Canada, and all they do is work with the colleges and universities and schools. We don't sell direct. We work with our integrator, that other part of the triangle, but we feel strongly that it helps generate that relationship and those close ties that you need from day one on a project to installation to training the professors to 3 years down the road when nobody has any budget to fix something that needed to last for 5 or 7 years.
Jeffrey, I want to come back to something that Ryan was talking about, and that is, you've got budget constraints, right? And the reason I ask about refresh rates, again, 100 years ago when I was a tech manager, I think ours was 7 years. And that was, Ryan, it was impressive, the fact that you guys hit HDMI as quickly as you did, because when I left, I was still arguing about composite video, but that's a different conversation. But how do you help, especially in education, right? We can make the differentiator between enterprise and education all day long, but education does consistently have significant budget constraints. Is the best way I can put that. How do you help them, whether it's from a design standpoint, it's from helping them kind of think through some of those challenges, but how does an integrator help an education institution tackle some of those issues?
Yeah, I mean, there's always that when is good enough kind
Yeah.
of a thing, right? Not everything is going to be the $100,000 classroom. Not everything is going to be a $20,000 classroom. Sometimes it's just a display on the wall. Sometimes that's all the room needs. So it's a balance. It's a delicate dance of trying to find from a theoretical, this is the right thing to do, or legally this is the right thing to do, but you have to now accept the risk. I can't make you do anything. I can't make you spend money you don't have, but we have to be the advisor and then meet somewhere in the middle. So as long as we can be that partner to assist, and guide along the way, and I'm not necessarily speaking for Ryan necessarily, but just for any customer for that matter, but just be a partner, be transparent, be and be fair about it, right? For me, I have a special place in my heart for higher education. I really enjoyed that vertical and being in that environment when I was there. So, I should have just as much skin in the game as they do. They are spending their money and have to make that last as long as they can and go as far as, put as much as they can in with it. So, I have to be able to, provide a product and a service at a fair price to meet that need. And then, also I should be at risk too. I shouldn't just walk away and, be complete and, I got my paycheck and that's it kind of a thing. So, it's difficult, it's a very, and that goes for nobody has the budget for, $500,000 room or whatever the case is going to be. So when is good enough? And what can we do to meet the needs of the room and the requirements of the space and the customer, the end user at the end of the day, to just meet in the middle or meet where we can, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Reminder, if you got any questions, we're going to tackle those here in about 10 minutes. Let's kind of bring this home, guys, for a second. And Ryan, we'll start with you on this and kind of work our way back. How can manufacturers and how can system integrators, and then, the IT and the AV manager, how do you guys create a good, not just relationship, but a good partnership? Like what exactly do you expect from the systems integrator as well as the manufacturers they choose, but also what do you expect out of yourself and your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I let me just do a little bit of history.
Yeah.
When I started at Wichita State, I was not an AV guy. Like most people, I just fell into AV. I came from the more of the IT side in the sense that I was doing educational technology. I was working with faculty on how to teach with technology.
Okay.
And then I got asked to fill in for somebody who had retired, and I said, yeah, I'll do that for a little while, but I don't want to do that forever. And I ended up, it's like, hey, this is kind of cool. I like AV. But at that time, we had some very old school, very simple push button controllers, things like that. Stuff you would typically find more in K-12. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just it was It was very simple, and what it meant was every time there was a problem, we had to send somebody to the room to fix it. Nothing was networked, nothing was available to us other than via a truck. And so I talking to my colleagues in ETC, I said, what do you guys do about this? Oh, we're Crestron, or we're Extron, or we're whatever. And I was like, how do you afford this? And they said, oh, aren't you an A+ member? And I said, a what? And so it just so happened that not too long after that, our regional Crestron rep just happened to stop by my office one day, and we chatted for 2 hours, I think, and he just filled in everything about the A+ program. I didn't know anything about it, and we became that A+ partner. And I can tell you right now, if it hadn't been for that A+ program, we would not probably be Crestron customers today. Because there was an inherent bias against Crestron at that time at Wichita State, and I found that very interesting for first, just stepping into it. I thought that's kind of odd, but that A+ program just opened up a whole new world to me that I didn't know existed. And so between the training that's available to us for free, online and even in-person things sometimes, that's fantastic. And having a regional rep that I can pick up the phone any minute and talk to is wonderful. Having direct access to that TrueBlue is huge. I mean, I think Jeff can say that's huge too, because if I had to take all of my problems through Jeff just to get to Crestron, he'd probably go insane. but no, it's but that relationship with CTI and any vendor, but especially CTI, is also huge because, again, I don't know everything. Even though I do most of the design myself, I'll hand these over to Jeff and say, hey, I need this. And he'll go, well, are you sure? Did you think about this? Did you think about that? Oh, no, I didn't. Or, hey, do you know Crestron has this new product, this new whatever, and I just hadn't seen it yet. So I couldn't do what I do without both sides of that triangle, really. So to me, it's huge.
So now I'll play somewhat of a journalist. You didn't answer the question about what do you expect from you and your team.
Flexibility, understanding. That's a challenging question. You're making me be introspective. I don't do that.
I like the flexibility part, right? Because you're right. When it comes to whether that's firmware that you need to update or whatever, but flexibility when it comes to timelines and stuff like that. Absolutely, I like that. Jeffrey, same question, right? Take a look at both sides, but also take a look a little bit like Ryan said, a little introspective of what you expect out of your team.
Sure. For me, and to come off of what Ryan was saying at the end there, is like when he does come to me, and I don't know everything either, but I don't have to know everything. I've got a pool of 100 other engineers at CTI can ask for it. Just because I don't have the answer to the problem doesn't mean somebody hasn't seen it before, or service technicians or programmers. I've got so many resources here that I can bounce off of, and it's just completely an open door policy kind of a thing. So just because I don't have the answer right now doesn't mean I won't have it in 10 minutes, and then if we don't know, then we can leverage our manufacturer partners as well, because that's what they do to support us and the customer at the end of the day as well. So it's great that he has a direct line, but we can do that too for them. That they've got bigger things to do and time, other priorities. So let us help solve your problems and be that partner for you there. For my team, continued education. It's a non-negotiable. Like, you have to keep on learning every day. Go take a manufacturer training, go take some certification courses and apply it. Don't just, do it and check the box. You have to be, absorb it and use it and be better every day, whether it's professionally or personally, personal growth, soft skills too. That goes a long way with being in front of your customers. And sometimes, like let's say your service, you're not walking into the best version of somebody sometimes, or a very upset faculty member perhaps who is sitting in front of 400 people and they forgot to flip the switch in the podium or something, but that happens. So, continued growth, continued education, 100% is a non-negotiable for me.
And what do you expect out of your manufacturer partners?
Manufacturer partners. So it's for manufacturing. Picking up the phone, right? If I had a problem and I needed to call Neil, he would answer the phone. Neil's our regional for my region for Crestron. The ability to have support. Especially our manufacturers who we're direct with. It is far easier to get support that way than did you turn it off and on again? Yes, we did. We're a very capable integrator. We can do that. There's a problem. We need help. That is absolutely. It's the support. It's the constant touch. I'm here for you. You're here for me. It's a partnership as well, right? It's just one of my. Maybe I didn't answer your question, I guess.
No, you did.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, that was good.
I will tell you guys a story later about a manufacturer friend of mine, and his field report simply said, Edison plugged re-engaged. And for those of you who don't know what that means it was unplugged. But you had to make it fancy and official. John, same question here, right? Take a look at both your systems integrator partner, the dealer, as well as the IT manager. What do you expect, and then what do you expect out of Crestron to develop that strong partnership?
I love encouraging, so from our educational partners and our integrator partners, connection. One thing I love about the education vertical that I think is one of the most compelling things is the collaboration. Schools, universities, colleges, I find are so open. They're willing to show, oh, hey, you're about to do this project. Let me show you what we did over here. I mean, sometimes to the point of, come by campus and I'll take you through it. I've seen schools share designs with schools. I see them share their tips and tracks. Ryan has done that for us with other institutions. So, it's not an expectation. It is a hope that we've made it easy enough and desirable enough to repeat the process and enjoyable enough to even brag about it a little bit and or to say, oh man, I've been through that. My fellow colleague at a different school, let me help you with what might be a good way to do it. Or let me tell you what to make sure, don't do this. And our integrator partners, I really like, Jeffrey mentioned, continued training, and not just to check the box, but to implement it and use it every day. That's what's so fun about being in technology is we're changing. And, I have a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old, and man, I feel like I got to stay up with it or else I'm going to just be left in the dust. Yeah. So, I also, Jeffrey, you mentioned, you might have said advisor or trusted advisor. I want our integrated partners to be a trusted advisor with our campuses and colleges and universities, because there are times where it's easier for Ryan to go to CTI or to Crestron and go, will you help me get some of my stakeholders to understand this? I can't be the bad guy or I jeopardize my relationship. Will you, like one concept, will you explain to someone that equity does not mean that every room gets the exact same equipment? Equity really means that every room gets exactly what they need to the benefit of the teachers using it. Yeah. And so there are times that I feel like it's our job to either fall on the sword a little bit and deliver a hard message, or to be there with resources to hand to Ryan, to hand to Jeffrey, and go, this is how you can help to have this conversation with your stakeholders. And so those are huge. And then the Crestron team, I personally think, I've been in the industry about 27 years, it's long-term partnerships. You should never, Jeffrey also mentioned, oh, well, I got paid. No, it's this is a small industry, friends, for everyone listening. And remember that it takes time. I like Warren Buffett says, it takes years to develop a good reputation and maybe seconds or minutes to destroy it. And so I want every one of my team members and the people I work with to think about that and think about that there's a horizon that is much farther beyond a single project or a single refresh of classrooms and so on.
That was really good. I like that. Um, all right, as we wrap up here, Ryan, we'll start with you on this. Give folks, if they are where you were a couple of years ago, or they're going down, a brand new road, or they're just, they're new to the area or new to the industry. How are you evaluating a new partner? And that partner can be a new manufacturer. That partner can be an existing manufacturer. That partner can be, a systems integrator. How are you evaluating them as you're choosing to engage and start the partnership with them?
I mean, kind of big picture to small picture.
Yep.
I look at what are other schools using. That's kind of my first thing,
Okay.
because if I look out there and 90% of the universities are all using, manufacturers A or B or C, obviously those are probably pretty good ones, and I can start there. If it's something I've never heard of before and is not out there anymore, then I'll go to them, and like John said, I've got to kind of work on that relationship. That's my first thing is I'll email them. I'll email who's supposed to be regional rep for this area, and I'll see what kind of response I get. And if it feels like they're interested in making a partnership, okay, let's talk about that. Can you send me some demos? Can you send me some whatever? And we'll evaluate it that way. And then it's about the support side, because like we said, that support is everything. And it's what is it going to look like when I have a problem? Is it going to be a nightmare getting, like like Jeff said, is it going to be, oh, did you try turning it back on and back off again? No, of course. What do you think? So they need to trust that we do know what we're talking about, and we wouldn't be contacting them if we had a problem. So that trust is really important to me, and that's something that I think Crestron does really well through their A+. When you're talking about integrators, again, your question was more of, if I'm new to the area or new to the field or new to the whatever, that was me about 10 years ago. I was completely new to this. I couldn't even tell you what an integrator was back then. And so when I was looking at, okay, we need to grow, what's my strategy to figure out what do I do for an integrator? For me, because we're a state school, we do have a handful, 10, 12 or so integrators that are on state contract. And so kind of by default, we're supposed to go with one of those first.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, okay, I've got a list of 10 to 12 to pick from. Literally what I did is I did one project with 4 or 5 different integrators.
Okay.
And I looked at the experience of what that was like. What kind of equipment did they specify? What was the quoting process like? What was the installation process like? The follow-up, the support, all those things. And I just kind of mentally, I didn't write anything down, but just kind of mentally rated all of them and said, okay, priority-wise, I'm going to put this integrator over this one, over that one, over that one. And that's how I built my list. And that's kind of how I stick to it even to this day, is you learn, because this is the kind of experience you get. And to me, it's not just about price. If I want cheap prices, I can go to an online vendor for most things nowadays, including some Crestron stuff now. Doesn't mean I get the same support if I buy it through that online vendor, but if I want cheap prices, I can get cheap prices anywhere. To me, it's not about price; it's about that service and that partnership, and it's how well you're willing to work with me when it's good times and bad.
Jeffrey, same question and Jeffrey used to work in higher education like me. So I take it from kind of both sides. What would you expect somebody to do to evaluate you, but also what sort of advice would you give to somebody who is needing to either get a new vendor, or again they're brand new to the space and they need to start building a list like Ryan?
Great question, man. So I mean, and I'm sure people check that on LinkedIn, you're going to figure out I worked for Ryan at one point. I was in these spaces. I was boots on the ground. He and I went to programming school together with Crestron, and we did the do out there. So for me, like, and when it came to CTI, it was a COVID thing, and like, it wasn't an overnight thing. He was still using another vendor, and honestly, I had no idea CTI was even in Wichita. We kept on sending our quotes to CTI Kansas City because that was their own state contract. So I had no idea. But then when I came over, it was kind of it was kind of eye opening to see. This is my first time working at a real integrator, right? So I don't have that experience to really, because Ryan was ultimately responsible for the department and the buyer. I came over as a design engineer, so I really didn't have any other than, hey, I'm just pumping out designs and supporting the projects, right? So as I moved into a director role, I more or less sold, but I wasn't selling anything. People had a need, and I could solve that problem. So, and for me personally, I'm not commission based, and I don't care. So, I mean, I just want to take care of the customer, give them a product they can rely on, and I'll be here for the next time. So, from a customer standpoint, and what they're evaluating in a integrator, just a conversation, right? Let's get to know each other first. I think that's important, whether it's a manufacturer or a customer or a vendor or whoever that is. That's what I love about Infocom. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to see, but like, I want the relationship. I want a partnership. There's skin in the game. For me as an integrator, I'm getting paid to do a service and provide goods, and that's what you should expect, right? So, you know, provide that fantastic customer experience and just do the right thing. That's all it really comes down to me. Like, that project specifically, there was a moment in time, it was the rack was already there. It's been there for 40 years, I'm sure. It still had like rack rails that had cage nuts in there. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. I'm getting out of there. It's like, I was like, I'm not going to pass paper to Ryan to replace the rack rails. That was a silly, that's not a change order thing. Let's just do the right thing and let's just make it right and modernize it and all those things. So, I don't know if I'm still answering your question correctly.
No, you did. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It's just, for me, that, I mean, coming from both sides, I mean, like, I've owned my mistakes, and nobody's perfect, and we'll make it right at the end of the day. And hopefully, you, as a new customer or somebody who's prospecting a new integrator, is just, let's have a conversation. Let's get to know each other. Go to lunch. Neil brought me to a baseball game. He's my regional Crestron rep here, and we didn't watch baseball. We talked about our kids. The entire 9 innings, and like his vacation he went to, and he took a train to New York, and what that experience was like, and and we didn't even talk tech. It was just a good time. We had a good time. Consider him a friend, kind of a thing. But anyway, so that's
all right. John, from your experience, what advice would you give to a tech manager or an IT director in higher education on how to evaluate both a systems integrator partner, but also a manufacturing partner?
It is such an important question. And so I had a couple quick ideas on it. It's, and I mentioned briefly, don't be afraid to speak to other institutions. It's who else in the area might have some experience. Join some industry groups to ask their members. We talk about HETMA, Higher Education Technology Managers Alliance, and Ryan, is played a big role in that. And ETC, Education Technology Collaborative, which sprung out of an earlier industry group. And so I feel that's important, and there's so much experience and wisdom they can share. And also, does the integrator have a proven track record? An integrator like CTI absolutely has a proven track record. And when we talk about what to know before you sign that contract, and when we're trying to balance this idea about price versus versus value and long-term partnership and so on, I've worked with schools to help them say, let's put in the bid that this integrator, the integrator we choose, will have this many rollouts of this type of a project that we're doing, successful rollouts in their past. they'll have a certified programmer on staff. Because I even, if I'm pretending like I'm an AV group at a campus, I've got a few of my guys trained. So I don't want someone who doesn't even have as much training as I do coming in and messing around with a program that maybe I've standardized part on other campus. So is that part? Do they have some rollouts, some successful rollouts of Crestron Fusion or XIO Cloud? Have they helped other parts of their customer integrate some of that software that helps them manage all of their AV equipment on campus? So sometimes speaking to other institutions and other partners in the industry can help separate and really divide, the pros from the wannabes. I don't mean it to sound like that.
No,
And you'll see where those pros stand out. It may not be on that bottom line price. It's going to be in successful rollouts, trained members of their staff, experiences of other institutions that are positive.
all right, guys, that'll be a great place to stop. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much for joining us. You can check us all out at the very bottom. You can click on LinkedIn and connect with us. But thanks for your time. Have a good day, guys.